Welcome back, everybody, to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, and Dalton Wasserman back here with you guys on a Monday morning to keep the mock draft madness going a little bit here as we review one of the best in the business. He released a mock draft, his 1.0 mock draft. It's Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network. We love DJ's work, and we've done so many mock drafts, Dalton, we figured, hey, why not look at what somebody else in the industry is doing? Because that's what mocks are all about, looking at different possibilities, different reasonings as we get towards the end of April. How you doing, my friend?
We're good. Long Senior Bowl week, obviously. Got some sleep over the weekend. And, Trev, before you know it, Super Bowl is going to be here this Sunday. That's going to be a lot of fun, too. But, yeah, you're right. Let's kick it off with some outside perspective here.
Ooh, I'm very excited. Not a week from today, 6 days from today, we're going to be doing a live stream for the Super Bowl. So we're very excited for that. A little watch along for you guys, just like Dalton, you and Max did for the national championship. We're going to be doing that for the Super Bowl. I'm excited about that, man. I've never done a watch-along show. Okay, how was the first one? How was the national championship one that you guys did a couple of weeks ago?
Honestly, it was a lot of fun. You just kind of watch a game. For us, it's the same way we watch games in the office every Saturday, or for you, it shouldn't feel any different than any Sunday, So I think going through it and just kind of watching the game as we see it happening live, and the chat was bumping. The social team really helped us out a lot with streaming it on Twitter and everything, too. So I think we had a lot of fun with it. It's going to be a lot of fun this Sunday as well.
I know, man. I love the concept. I've never done this before, but I really do love the concept. We would love for you guys to hang out with us while we all watch the Super Bowl together. So, yeah, next Sunday for the Super Bowl, we'll be doing that. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss that notification when we go live, so you can come hang out with us in the chat. Okay, let's pull up Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. First and foremost, of course, make sure you guys are following Daniel and all of his great work that he does throughout all of draft season. You can see this mock draft over at NFL.com / what is it? It's like news Daniel Jeremiah. Just search Daniel Jeremiah mock draft NFL Network and you'll be able to find it. It'll pop up for you. But make sure you guys go read the entire mock draft. We're going to bounce around a little bit. We'll go in increments of 8 sort of as we reveal all the picks here from DJ. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on every single pick, but more of the ones that we think are the most intriguing, because we just did a mock draft last week, in case you guys missed it, that post-Senior Bowl mock draft, and we'll kind of compare. This one was written before the Senior Bowl, so I'm sure that things would be a little bit different, but it's still pretty fresh, and I think it's meaningful to be able to go through this one. Let's go through the top 8, just straight into the top 8 here. I'll read them off, and then Dalton, I'll give you the ability to just say, hey, this pick really stood out to me from this group of 8 that we have here. Raiders, no surprise at number 1. They're going Fernando Mendoza. Your New York Jets taking Arvell Reese, the linebacker from Ohio State. The Cardinals went with Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle from Utah. Tennessee, we go back-to-back offensive tackles here. Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle from Miami, there to the Tennessee Titans. Cornerback Mansour Delane in the top 5 to number 5 of the Giants. I have not seen that one before. David Bailey from Texas Tech going to Cleveland at 6. Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, at number 7. And then the New Orleans Saints win the Jeremiah Love sweepstakes with him at number 8. Where do you want to start here, Dalton?
I'm actually going to start with a double dip on the offensive line at 3 and 4. I find those two picks very interesting because there seems to be a lot of discussion about this offensive line class compared to past, especially on the offensive tackle, especially last year's group when you had Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks and Armand Membu go in the top 10, and there's been discussion about whether Spencer Fano is a tackle or a guard, how high could Francis Mauigoa go, and then even the two teams selecting these two at 3 and 4, the Cardinals and the Titans. I think there's a lot of storylines. Obviously, the Cardinals, we don't know what their vision looks like yet with Mike LaFleur just being hired as a head coach yesterday. Do they want to build that offensive line? Right tackle has been a sore spot for them over the last couple of years. So if they believe Fano can stay at right tackle, then maybe he's a plug-and-play guy in the bookend with Paris Johnson. And then I think Tennessee is even more interesting because you look at them taking a tackle here in Mauigoa, but you still have Dan Moore Jr., who's on a $20 million a year contract on the left side. You have J.C. Latham heading into his 3rd year out of Alabama on the right side. If they draft Mauigoa, I would assume that means that either Latham moves inside to guard or they're drafting Mauigoa to play guard. And are you drafting a guard at that point, 4th overall? Now, I understand, figure out your offensive line depth. Obviously, you want your best 5 in the field at all times. And they drafted another offensive tackle, Peter Skoronski, very high. And he's played left guard for his entire career. So it's not like Tennessee's not used to doing this sort of thing. I find those two picks really, really interesting because it's not necessarily thought of that these offensive tackles are slam dunk top 5 picks like this, but the need for both teams is obviously apparent enough that Daniel went ahead and put these 2 tackles with these 2 teams.
Yeah, I think we talked about this on the PFF mock draft show. I know we talked about it on the NFLSE mock draft show. The Titans' most important question for them to answer this offseason is probably the J.C. Latham question. And so we've kind of talked about that a little bit more. I'm not really surprised at an offensive line selection here for the Titans. And, I don't know how much I'll lean into an offensive tackle pick for the Titans until we kind of get past free agency and we have a better idea of what the Titans' offensive line is going to be before the draft. But I do think that calling this out makes a lot of sense, and it's something that we've talked about here on this show. You have to answer the question, is Latham a tackle for you? Is he a guard? And then you kind of move on from there. I think Maui Noah, you and I believe that he could play both guard and tackle at the NFL level, and so this pick sort of makes sense anyways, independent of them having a definitive answer there along the offensive line. So I do like that pick. Fano being the pick for the Cardinals, I like Spencer Fano as an offensive tackle. I really do. Going through his tape, I still worry a little bit about his ability to anchor overall at the NFL level, but I do still think that he could play tackle. He could also play guard, and the Cardinals are another team that offensive line is paramount for them to invest in. And so if you believe that these offensive linemen, or even just one of them, like let's say you just believe one of them, whether it's Maui Noah, whether it's Fano, if you believe that one of these guys is worthy of a top 5 pick, then I really do think that we're going to start to hone in on Arizona upgrading their offensive line at this spot. I think the only reason why this isn't sort of a foregone conclusion is because they're split reviews on the top of the offensive tackle class. Is it worth the number 3 overall pick, or should you still just go best player available? So I think those 2 spots are really interesting offensive line conversations. I think the next 2 picks are very, very interesting. The New York Giants at number 5 and the Cleveland Browns at number 6. We often have both of these teams going offense no matter what. Like, I can't say that I have seen a defensive pick outside of maybe Caleb Downs for the Giants, but I can't say that I've seen a defensive pick for either the Giants or the Browns, given the wide receiver need that the Giants have, how all the wide receivers are still on the board. Offensive line could potentially be a need for them depending on how they navigate free agency there with that new coaching staff. And then Cleveland just had one of the best defenses in the NFL, period, last year. But DJ says in the first sentence, Cleveland should just be taking the best player available at that point at number 6, especially knowing that they have another first-round pick a little bit later in this draft when they traded with Jacksonville for Travis Hunter at the draft last year. So I like both of these players, but I'm kind of surprised at the landing spots here. Delane makes a little bit more sense because you've got Drew Phillips who can play in the nickel. You have Paulson Adebo, who you paid last free agency. Deonte Banks hasn't developed into the player that you wanted him to be. Is Cordell Flott really the guy that you want as another outside starting corner for you? For David Bailey and the Browns, I mean, that would just make such a nasty front 4 for them and guys who could get after the passer. But I was pretty surprised to see both of these names here at these 2 specific spots. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think for Delane, certainly, look, to me, the first defensive back off the board should be Caleb Downs, regardless of position, right? So I think him and Javon Holland back there in that Giants defense would be an outstanding duo. And then I think when it comes to Bailey and the Browns, I know you're not necessarily always supposed to draft for need, but when your needs are the entire offense, and I understand the top 2 tackles are off the board, then it comes down to, okay, best player available, or do you force a wide receiver to the Browns to try to find, is it Mekhi Lemon? Is it Jordan Tyson? Is it Carnell Tate at this spot? I would be throwing every asset I had at this offense in Cleveland. I mean, even if they draft David Bailey, they're going to win games 13-10 every week? That's the part that I don't understand. Yes, it would make them probably the best defensive line in football if it isn't already. You've got Myles Garrett, you've got Mason Graham, now you've got David Bailey in this scenario, but you have to be able to score some points. And to me, the Browns have to come out of this first round of this draft with an offensive lineman and a wide receiver.
You talked a lot about Jeremiah Love and his spot to the New Orleans Saints. I believe that's what you selected in our post-Senior Bowl mock draft a couple of days ago. So I won't ask you too much about that. If people want to see that analysis, they can go listen to the whole thing on the episode that we did, but the Commanders specifically going with Sonny Styles at number 7. You know, you're passing over a player like Caleb Downs, so we've got another defensive player who's getting picked over Caleb Downs here in this mock draft, which I think is interesting given the conversations that I had in Mobile with just a lot of people who are prominent draft industry names. I'll just say that, who are not convinced that Caleb Downs is going to go as high as maybe his talent overall believes that he should. What do you think about Styles as the pick here for 7 at Washington before we get into the next group of 8?
I don't hate it. I think the general approach from Washington just needs to be take the best defensive player available. They just need game changers. If they feel like Sonny Styles is a game changer at linebacker, so be it, take him. If they feel like it's Caleb Downs or Mansour Delane or somebody up front like a Ruben Bain, then fine. I don't think Washington, as long as they take a defensive player they think is a difference maker, I don't know that they can necessarily make a bad pick here. They just need to add talent to their defense.
All right, let's get to the next group of 8 because I think that this is very interesting because there is one name that was not in DJ's top 8 that we start with here in the next group of guys, and that's Ruben Bain Jr. Ruben Bain Jr. going to the Kansas City Chiefs at number 9. So I want to talk about that fit there and then also him lasting all the way to pick number 9. Cincinnati taking cornerback Jermon McCoy. Miami at number 11 taking safety Caleb Downs is when he comes off the board. 12, Dallas Cowboys going with cornerback Colton Hood. 13, the Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Mekhi Lemon. I hadn't thought of that one before, but the more I thought about the possibility, I did like it. We'll talk about that more in a second. Baltimore at 14 going Vega Owane, the offensive guard from Penn State. Buccaneers at 15 taking edge rusher Cassius Howell. And then at number 16, the New York Jets, their second pick here in wide receiver Carnell Tate. So Arvell Reese and Carnell Tate, 2 Ohio State guys for the Jets with their 2 top 16 selections. Let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs and Ruben Bain here. Dalton, you and I love Ruben Bain a lot. We think that he is one of the best defensive players in the class. This fit is excellent. And DJ says in his little blurb, he's like, I love the fit here. Just the all-around player, how strong he plays, how he could play anywhere from a 3 technique all the way to a wide 7. Like just the versatility, the effectiveness, everything from Ruben Bain makes him a great fit for Steve Spagnuolo, even if he does have the shorter arms to him. But all that to say, him lasting to 9, the arm, I just can't see the arm length of Ruben Bain being such an issue for people that he's lasting all the way to 9. Can you?
Look, Trev, you get to this time of year with he didn't go to the Senior Bowl. He accepted the invite and then didn't go. And then you get to the time of the year when it comes to the combine and all the measurements come in and people start to question, oh, what's his fit? Is he a 3 technique, this and that? I mean, 9 really isn't that far. There's nothing at this point in this draft class that would surprise me because there's just not that many blue chippers. I think you have scouts that see many of these kids as similar talents, right? And I think Bain with the arm length and with, okay, he's kind of, is he tweener sized? Is he not? Is he a stand-up outside linebacker? Is he going to play on the inside? I could see. Do I agree with it? No, not at all. I don't think he should get by probably number 7, to be honest with you. But I could see a scenario where this happens, and it would be a home run A-plus pick for the Chiefs, a team that's been looking for help aside from Chris Jones and George Karlaftis on their defensive line. I think he'd be a great addition to their team. It wouldn't surprise me that much if he got to 9. I wouldn't see him falling outside of the top 10, certainly. If he got to Cincinnati, they'd almost have to take him.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And Cincinnati goes with Jermon McCoy here. So we get 2 corners, end up going in the top 10. You and I have talked about how much better the Cincinnati Bengals secondary played this past season. And so Caleb Downs on the board. Obviously, DJ has them going with Jermon McCoy here as well. I'm not so sure they're going to take a secondary player here at number 10. Like, even if it's Downs, I don't even know if they're going to take Caleb Downs there at number 10. Maybe they would, but I feel like their secondary has been playing a little bit better. But that brings us to Caleb Downs. You've watched this player so much over the last couple of years. We love the talent that he is. What's the thoughts on him being a member of Jeff Hafley's defense now in Miami at pick number 11?
I think it's the perfect scenario, right? When you think about a guy who can do just a little bit of everything, and you're talking about coming in and playing with a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick if they hang on to him. Kind of similar players, right? They have the versatility. They're good tacklers. They can play back free. They can play in the box. They can play that rat kind of role. I think it's the perfect cornerstone for what Jeff Hafley's going to want to do with this defense. Look, the front 7 has talent that did not play as well as they should have this year, especially on the defensive line. But you've got a talented defensive line. You've got Jordan Brooks at linebacker. You can find more help for him in free agency or later in this draft. I think Caleb Downs is the perfect player to turn around this secondary. They still need help at corner. They're going to have to figure that out. But when you talk about, to me, the one guy in this draft who can be the true centerpiece of a secondary, Caleb Downs is that guy. I think this would be a dream scenario for Miami.
Going down to number 13, Mekhi Lemon to the Rams. Had not thought of this at all before. And when I saw it, when I read DJ's mock for the first time, I was like, what? That would be, why would they use this pick on a wide receiver? It feels like they can get wide receiver play from basically anybody. But the more that I thought about it, the more it's like, man, you look at a long-term answer of having Puka Nacua, all of those tight ends, and then you throw Mekhi Lemon in there as well. What a wide receiver combination that would be, to just get two absolute dogs, two guys that'll block their butt off, two guys that are unbelievable and competitive at the catch point. The toughness is there for them, the yards after catch, the route running ability, the releases. I mean, these players play the game very similarly. Nacua is just a little bit bigger at what he does when he's doing it. But man, if you like Puka Nacua, then obviously which everybody should, you're going to love the skill set that Mekhi Lemon has as well. So, Dalton, I had not thought of this one before, but even though I'm not sure the Rams end up making this pick, even if Lemon's on the board, if it happens, it's hard to hate on it too much given the potency of the offense if he's a member of the Los Angeles Rams.
Kind of reminds you of the Bucs taking Emeka Egbuka last year, right? Where you're like, he's kind of the third or the fourth guy, but if they love the player, then so be it. And I think the other factor in this is you've seen three corners go in the top 12, right? That's the Rams' biggest need, and you see Mansour Delane and Jermod McCoy and Colton Hood already off the board. So unless they reach for a corner, at that point they take best player available, and if they feel like that's Lemon, then so be it. Again, it's kind of like Egbuka and the Bucs last year.
Yeah, I'd be very curious if DJ was doing this mock draft after the Senior Bowl. I don't think that Colton Hood would be going this high. Colton Hood had moments, but he was up and down, I felt like, throughout the Senior Bowl. And I do think that he's a talented cornerback. Just 12's the highest that I've seen him in a mock draft at all in general, and especially after Senior Bowl week when it was a little bit up and down for him. I think Hood's more of a back end of the first round, early part of the second round type of a cornerback than a guy who would go in the top 15. But anybody else here? The Vega fit to the Ravens, Cassius Howell to the Buccaneers, Carnell Tate going to your New York Jets. Anyone else we shouting out here?
No, I just think those three picks make a lot of sense, right? We've talked about the Ravens and their need at guard. I think Ioane makes a lot of sense as far as the fit and what their offense is going to look like. Cassius Howell, I think this was the same pick that we made in our mock draft after the Senior Bowl. The Bucs need an edge rusher. Cassius Howell certainly is that. He was the best edge rusher in the SEC this year. And Carnell Tate, I do think wide receiver is a prime target here at 16. If it's Carnell Tate, if it's Mekhi Lemon available at 16, maybe Jordan Tyson as well, who we're about to see in a few picks, it sure feels like the Jets, they're going to be zeroing in on wide receivers in this draft, and number 16 could very much be a possibility for that.
All right. 16 picks in. I do agree with Cassius Howell. I mean, I think that basically every single mock draft that I do here for the Buccaneers, Cassius Howell ends up being the perfect pick because he's the last great edge rusher that is left who's really good at getting after the passer, and they absolutely need it. But before we get on to the next 8 picks that we have here in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, our game plan of the week, as it is Super Bowl week, presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Dalton, you and I have talked about this a little bit, and I think a great game plan that the Seattle Seahawks could have is continuing to lean into those zone coverage looks that they have done so much over this past season. And the reason why is because not only are they good at it when it comes to quarters or cover 6, it allows them to be very versatile on the back end with those deep defenders, but also it allows guys to keep their eyes on the quarterback, and that could mitigate Drake May with his legs as well. So I think that's a game plan of the week. We're going to have so many more game plans of the week that we will go through when we do our Super Bowl preview show on Wednesday. But just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should as well. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family, so you can focus on winning today knowing that tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out building your dynasty or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. All All right, halfway through Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0, which you guys can see over at NFL.com. The next crop of 8 picks here, starting with one, near and dear to my heart. And you know this is true, Dalton. I love this one. I love this connection. I love this landing spot, and I love this player. Hakeem Messidor, the edge rusher from Miami, not only getting to go in the first round, but to a perfect spot, in my opinion, with the Detroit Lions there at number 17. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety from Toledo, going number 18 overall. Look at that, Dalton. At Toledo back in the first round. A defensive back factory there in Ohio. Carolina, wide receiver Jordan Tyson. Oh, my goodness. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Dallas Cowboys, edge rusher Keldrick Falk from Auburn. Pittsburgh, wide receiver Denzel Boston from Washington. Los Angeles Chargers, defensive tackle Lee Hunter from Texas Tech. The Philadelphia Eagles at number 23, taking cornerback Avion Terrell. And then at number 24, Caden Proctor, the offensive lineman from Alabama, going to the Cleveland Browns. Now, there is a little editor's note for this mock draft, and that is for the Los Angeles Chargers. They're at number 22. After publishing, this is when Teair Tart agreed to a contract extension with the Chargers. So this is a little bit different because part of what DJ says in his blurb is that Teair Tart was due to become a free agent in the beginning parts of March. And so I think that sort of goes into the Lee Hunter pick. Not that Lee Hunter could not still be a selection for the Los Angeles Chargers, but just wanted to make sure we give full context for that pick there. Dalton, where do you want to start here for this one?
I'll actually start with your guy there at 17, Hakeem Messidor, right? And I think there's going to be a discussion had about, okay, Messidor and his age. What is he going to be, 24 or 25 years old?
He will be 25 on draft night. He will have just turned 25 on draft night.
So,
yes.
I mean, there's going to be a discussion about the age, but there's no doubt this guy had an elite season for Miami. We talk about Ruben Bain so much, but Hakeem Messidor was just as big a reason Miami got to the national championship game as Bain was, right? He's got versatility in, to go work inside if you want him to. He played defensive tackle for a couple of years. He's a legitimate 280 pounds. I've seen him on the field. I remember a game Miami was playing Louisville back in 2024, and this whole defensive line looked like monsters, but Hakeem Messidor, his frame is legit, man. That's an NFL frame. You can play him anywhere you want on the defensive line, and Jason Taylor has coached him up so well along with Ruben Bain when it comes to the pass rush arsenal and how to rush the passer. I think it makes a lot of sense. Maybe, obviously, you don't get him at 20, 21 years old where you could have him for 15 years or what have you, like a Myles Garrett, but if you talk about a guy who can get to a second contract and have a solid 8-9 year career, then I think you're talking about number 17 being a worthy pick for him. And Detroit, as always, is looking for help for Aiden Hutchinson there on the other side. Al-Qadim Muhammad did a great job this year, but to get a little bit younger and get a player with the ceiling that Messidor showed you this year, I think it is a really good pick.
Yeah, he's a ready-made pass rusher. That's the term that people keep using, that I keep using as well. Is Hakeem Messidor the pass rusher that every team would want or need in the first round? No, even for as talented as I think that he is, he's not going to be for every team. If you've got much more of a long-term view, if you're not in a winning window at all, if you're truly rebuilding your team and trying to get younger, no, Messidor's probably not going to be your cup of tea in the first round. But if you are a team that needs a pass rusher that is in a winning window, I think of Detroit at 17, and then I think of where Chicago picks. Chicago picks 25. Chicago picks number 25. Like, those two teams are the first ones that come to my mind where I go, yeah, these teams are in winning windows right now. You want to draft somebody that can play for you and be a difference maker for you right now at that position of what they're asked to do. And I think that Hakeem Messidor would be perfect for both of those teams because they've set themselves up for that pick to be fantastic. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren obviously coming in, giving some extra talent to the Vikings secondary that's losing Harrison Smith, and could use an upgrade from a playmaking standpoint there. Jordan Tyson to the Carolina Panthers. Man. Talk about moving on from Xavier Legette with authority. Jordan Tyson, I mean, we talk about him at number 5 overall to the Giants. But I do think that him going number 19 brings up a point that is worth discussing, and that even though I have him wide receiver 1 in this class, talent-wise, that injury history from him with the major knee injury his freshman year, with the hamstring injury in 2025, and then the collarbone injury that I believe he suffered in 2024, it's just a lot of wear and tear. Like, that's just an extensive injury history that he has there, and teams and coaches don't like drafting damaged goods in the first round. So if, the doctors get a look at him at the combine and the medicals come back, it's like, yeah, he's healthy now, but I don't know how healthy he's going to be throughout his NFL career. You get a little bit worried. And even who's a guy who is, in my opinion, a top 10 talent type of a wide receiver, you factor in that injury history and he could slide all the way towards the late teens, early 20s, I think. So now is Carolina the spot for him? I'm not so sure. That would be a hell of a way to say, yep, we missed on Xavier Legette and we're moving on, to get Tetairoa McMillan in the top 10 last year and then to capitalize on Jordan Tyson if he is there for them at number 19. I don't think this happens, but certainly you feel incredible about your wide receiver group if you've got Tetairoa McMillan, Jordan Tyson, and then Jalen Coker as the 1, 2, 3 there.
Yeah, Carolina's got a lot of intriguing options because you could argue, okay, wide receiver if they want to bail on Legette. I think you could argue tight end, and this would be a spot where Kenyon Sadiq could fit in with a lot of the inline tight ends that they already have. Obviously, their front seven needs more help, and I think an underrated need here could be left tackle, right? Ike Ekwonu suffering that season-ending injury. I believe it was in the postseason, and you're talking about a guy who might miss most or all of next year. So I think there's a ton of options for Carolina. They're really in a spot where they can go best player available, and there's several different ways to improve the team.
Okay, so who else in this group? Anybody else stand out to you? Keldrick Falk, Denzel Boston, the Lee Hunter selection being this high, I actually think that that's appropriate given how well he played in the Senior Bowl. So that was a little bit of foreshadowing there from DJ, who wrote this one before the Senior Bowl. But anybody else to shout out here in this group of 8?
I just think the last two picks make a ton of sense, right? When you're talking about the Eagles needing a true CB2 on the outside or need to figure out something with their defensive personnel in the secondary. Obviously, you love Cooper DeJean in the nickel. You've got Quinyon Mitchell as CB1, but they need some help at that other spot. That was the weakest spot in their defense. And then, we're going to see this a lot. Caden Proctor to the Browns makes a ton of sense. I mean, they just need offensive line talent. He's the most talented offensive lineman remaining on the board. If he can start for them immediately at left tackle, then that is a win for them. Again, the Browns need to spend probably multiple picks on this offensive line throughout this draft in order to get anywhere next year on offense.
And I do agree with something that Max said when we were going through the post-Senior Bowl mock draft. And it feels as though we've gotten carried away now with Caden Proctor. Like, does he have the quickest feet? No, he doesn't. Is he going to be an offensive tackle at the NFL level? I think that there are some understandable question marks there of whether or not he has that foot speed. But Proctor was good towards the second half of this year. Proctor was really good, including in pass protection with those heavy feet, if you will. So I don't know. I think that we've gone too far. I think a lot of people look at Caden Proctor, and there was the skepticism of whether or not he was going to be an offensive tackle prospect anyways going into the year. And I think that we're just to the point where we go like, well, I just don't think he's a first rounder now. That to me is too far. That's too far for me. I think that is he a top 10, top 5 overall pick? No, I don't think that he is. But for the Cleveland Browns, who are going to have issues and long-term positions to fill at guard and at tackle, to me, Caden Proctor's a perfect fit for what Cleveland is going to need over the next couple of years. So I do agree with you. I think that we've just gone too far on the Caden Proctor skepticism, because this is still a starting caliber offensive lineman at the NFL level. It just might not be at the tackle position.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, again, when you're talking about Cleveland, even if he does eventually become a guard, they just need talent. They got basically an empty room right now in that unit, and they won't get anywhere no matter who their quarterback is until they add talent to all 5 of those spots.
All right, before we get to the final 8 selections here from Dane and Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0, we've got a lot of really great things going on over at PFF.com when you have a PFF Plus subscription, which includes the player prop tool. And with the Super Bowl coming up, if you guys have not seen this yet, you got to check it out.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
You can see the PFF player prop tool. Of course, so much more. If you have that PFF Plus subscription, you can run as many mock drafts as you want on the mock draft simulator. The free agency tools are obviously going to be your best friend over the next couple of weeks. So subscribe.pff.com is the best way for you to get that. Final 8 picks that we have here from Daniel Jeremiah's Mock Draft 1.0, which you guys can see over at NFL.com, starting with a player near and dear to your heart, Dalton. Chicago Bears going Dylan Thieneman, your boy, getting into the first round here. The safety from Oregon to Chicago here to kick us off. Buffalo linebacker C.J. Allen from Georgia. San Francisco going tight end Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. Houston offensive tackle Moreau Freeling from Georgia. So we go Oregon, Georgia, Oregon, Georgia. I didn't even realize that there. The Rams number 29. Go offensive tackle Blake Miller from Clemson. 30 defensive tackle Peter Woods from Clemson. Man, we talk about him going number 10 overall. We got him here at number 30. For the Denver Broncos. Number 31, offensive tackle Caleb Lomu from Utah. And then the final pick, the Seattle Seahawks taking cornerback Brandon Cisse from South Carolina. Where do you want to start here, Dalton?
I think Dylan Thieneman makes a lot of sense for the Bears, right? You look at Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker and C.J. Gardner-Johnson all being free safeties. I think the most likely guy there to return is probably Byard, considering the leadership and the emphasis in Dennis Allen's defense of forcing turnovers, and Byard does that. He's done that his whole career, and Thieneman can do the same, right? I think he's so versatile. Talk about a guy who can play in the slot. He can play single high. I thought at Purdue he was the best single high safety in the country. Went to a more quarters-based system in Dan Lanning and Tosh Lapoy's defense here at Oregon to prove that he can play in multiple roles. He's an aggressive run defender, was one of Oregon's best run defenders this year. I think you're just adding a playmaker to your defense when you add Dylan Thieneman, and the Bears need more playmakers, right? It's great to lead the league in turnovers, but it can lead to some inconsistencies in your defense. They need a lot of help on defense. I think they get a lot of it in this draft, and if it starts with Thieneman, I think they're off to a good start.
Yeah, I think Thieneman is a really good selection for them, and sort of like you mentioned, they could have a major safety need when the draft ends up rolling around, depending on what happens to free agency. I like the C.J. Allen selection for the Buffalo Bills as well. I think he's a young cornerstone player for them at the second level of that defense, really could shore that up. And, man, I like C.J. Allen, one of the best run defenders in the country, almost an elite run defense grade this past season. Coverage grades weren't so great, but, man, there were flashes. The flashes were there, and I think that with him just being a true junior, you feel pretty good about what his future could be. Kenyon Sadiq makes a ton of sense for the San Francisco 49ers, obviously taking over for George Kittle, and George Kittle going through the Achilles injury. So hopefully there's a couple more years of George Kittle where these two guys can thrive together, and then you feel good leaning on Kenyon Sadiq, who would ideally be the second contract player for you. What do we think about Peter Woods going 30th to the Denver Broncos? What do we think about him lasting all the way to number 30? Woods did not have as good of a year as we thought that he was going to, but the flashes were still there for a player who was a top 10 overall recruit, somebody who was highly coveted in his recruiting class 3 years ago. And even though he didn't have a great 2025, Dalton, he was still earned really high grades as a freshman, playing a ton, as a true sophomore, playing a ton as well. Overall defensive grades in the high and low 80s for those 2 seasons. So your thoughts on him lasting to number 30, and then a little bit of this fit with him going to the Denver Broncos as well?
I have to wonder if it's really more about scouts don't believe in his pass rush ceiling, right? Only 6 sacks in 3 years at Clemson, 65.5 pass rush grade this year. Now, the win rates have always been pretty good with him, but he's not the most explosive pass rusher. And I think in a class where you have a lot of really good run-stuffing defensive tackles, you think about a Caden McDonald, right, as one of those guys. You think about a Kristen Miller from Georgia as one of those guys. If Peter Woods is just another run stopper in a class full of them, then I could see him going in this range and he just becomes, okay, a solid starter, a solid early down player. Is there more in there as a pass rusher that he can become an elite player? And he's still a very young player, still just going to be 21 years old when he's drafted. But I think from what we've seen from Peter Woods, especially lately, is he a stable player? Absolutely. Do you know what you're getting week in and week out? Yes. But is there more? Are you going to be able to say, okay, this guy can get me a 75 to 80 pass rush grade one day? Is that explosiveness in there? He's incredibly strong. He can hold his gap. He can hold double teams down in the run game. But is he going to be able to do that? It's kind of the opposite of what you got from the Saints and Brian Brzee, right? Where Brzee was twitchy and athletic and he could rush the passer, but can he defend the run? And that's kind of proven to not be the case in New Orleans. Peter Woods is kind of the opposite, where you know what you're getting as a run defender. Is he going to give you more as a pass rusher? And even playing this whole season at Clemson, he only had 14 pressures the entire year. I think the pass rush ceiling is what everybody's concerned with Woods.
Right after that, it's pick 31, and I still do believe that Caleb Lomu, the offensive tackle from Utah, is worthy of a late first-round selection. I think that you really could have a starting caliber offensive tackle there. Remember, he's just a redshirt sophomore coming into this draft, and so I think that he's been growing and getting stronger over the last couple of years. This past year, I felt like he was able to put his best foot forward, and so just seeing him get better and progress over the last couple of years, you're drafting a really young offensive tackle who truly is ascending. I think he's got starting caliber size, strength, movement ability. He's still kind of putting it all there when it comes to what he is and how difference-making he is as a run blocker, really being a difference maker there, a people mover, getting that displacement strength there. But I think that there's plenty of potential for him to be a starting offensive tackle, and you're in a situation where New England might not have to play him right away, right? You've got Morgan Moses on one side, you got Will Campbell on the other. Will Campbell may not be the long-term answer for them at left tackle. I still think that it's a little too early to call that, even though he has struggled throughout the postseason. We'll see how he plays during the Super Bowl, but you at least have to be open to the conversation of what if he is not. And so I think getting a player like Lomu, who is young and has really good tackle potential, makes sense for the Patriots. And then last thing I'll say on Brandon Cisse before I get your take on either of these selections, I think Cisse's got really good movement skills. I think he played a ton of zone coverage in South Carolina's scheme, but I did watch the moments where he was asked to play those single coverage roles, and I thought that he played it very well. And I think he's pretty twitchy. He's got good movement skills. He knows how to mirror. He's got good recovery speed. All of that lends itself to being a pretty good versatile corner. And, you know, if the Seahawks end up moving on from Reek Woolen and they can't sign him, I believe Josh Jobe is a free agent as well for them. But I think they've got a cornerback need no matter what, at least before free agency. We'll see what happens after free agency, but I think that this could make a lot of sense for them as well.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point with New England and Lomu especially, and I think for all three of these teams in this range that took offensive linemen here, the Houston Texans with Monroe Freeling, the Rams with Blake Miller, and the Patriots with Caleb Lomu, if nothing else, just add offensive line talent and deal with the consequences later, right? I think you just have a shortage of offensive line talent in this league. There's not many teams with bad offensive lines that can make deep playoff runs. I think Houston especially, it would be a really good approach to tackle here, especially with you have Titus Howard who can play guard or tackle. You have the flexibility. You have Ariante Ursuru who could probably play either side, whatever you feel comfortable with. I think you have a set of teams right now that are trying to just find offensive line talent. We kind of did this earlier with Tennessee in the 4th overall pick, right? Taking Francis Mauanoa. Just take these guys and figure it out later. It's kind of like the Lions did with Penei Sewell. Fine, he's got to play on the right side. Who cares? We just got to get better up front. We can't have weak links up front. So I think for all of these teams, it makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned it for the Patriots with Morgan Moses still being relatively effective there at right tackle. We'll see what Will Campbell looks like in year 2 at left tackle. There is nothing wrong with taking offensive line talent, especially early in the draft.
Go check out the full mock draft and make sure you guys that are supporting DJ's work as well. Follow him on Twitter and all the social media handles as well. Going to read his work over at NFL.com. Appreciate you guys watching our analysis here of DJ's mock draft. The mock draft madness, of course, will continue throughout the offseason, but the next time you see us Dalton, it'll be for the Super Bowl preview episode that we are doing on Wednesday. Can't wait to see that one. For everybody behind the glass producing the show, for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the PFF NFL show. We will see you guys for the Super Bowl preview on Wednesday. See you then.